All right, let's go ahead and get started. This is the fifth and final installment of the Becoming a Resilient Scientist series in 2022. I think we've done this series, I don't know, 10 or 11 times since the start of the pandemic, and this is our first hybrid presentation. So I'm pleased to say that today, instead of talking to you from my home office in Silver Spring, or my work office in Bethesda on the main NIH campus, that I am in the Natcher Conference Center, and really pleased to start to work out ways that we can leverage the technology to keep people involved from universities all across the US, but also begin to bring the NIH community together. Today, we'll talk about managing up to maximize mentoring relationships. And in many ways, this takes us right back to the beginning. So you probably remember that in Unit 1, when we were talking about resilience, I said resilience equals people plus process plus preparation. And when we think of the people, what we were talking about were each other in this community, peers in our programs, peers in our research groups, in our classes, people in our personal support network. And we were also talking about mentors, whether those mentors be research mentors within the lab, whether they are other mentors that we've met at school in our work, whether they were long-term mentors or people we just met working to develop relationships with. To really be resilient means to have individuals that you can go to talk about the things going on. And so it's really fitting to revisit that beginning 10 weeks ago, and now to use all the information we've learned since then to talk about relationships with a broad community of mentors, and also relationships with your PI, the faculty member who runs your research group, your boss, whatever the word is that you use. So I think it should be absolutely no different in a hybrid environment than in the virtual environment. I will be able to see the questions at the end. There won't be any problem. We will be using Slido just like before, and hopefully it will feel like a similar experience for all of you, the few folks who are here in the room and the many folks that are online. So I just want to start by making sure that we are all on the same page with a few definitions. And you know, we do that a lot during the talk. We make sure that we're using the same shared common language. So a supervisor is someone responsible for making sure we get work done. Right? A supervisor and boss are two words we use interchangeably. Now, a mentor is someone who advises and guides us. They support us both personally and professionally. A couple of other important terms are coach. That's a term many of us are familiar with from sports. I was just actually texting my tennis coach saying it's going to be a perfect day tomorrow, and I'm not going to start work early. Can you meet me at the courts, right? Coaches teach us specific skills. And in that regard, Luis is my tennis coach. But when we think about school and work, coaches teach us specific skills important for advancing our career goals, our educational goals, et cetera. So a coach could be a writing coach. A coach could be a well-being coach, someone to help us deal with our stress management. A coach could actually be within the research space teaching us a particular tool or technique. And then one last phrase or definition that I want to talk about is that of an advocate. Advocates are individuals who speak up on our behalf. They recommend us for assignments, for positions, for opportunities. They talk about us to others. And ultimately, as you all navigate this educational and career space that you're in, as you make important transitions, important applications, consider what you want to do, you will need individuals who coach you, who mentor you, who advocate for you. And generally, if you are working within a research group, it's important to acknowledge that you also have a supervisor or boss. Now, it's really important that we understand the difference between supervising and mentoring, or supervisors and bosses, because we tend to use those two words interchangeably in the scientific and educational community. So a supervisor tells you what to do. Their style of help is pretty directive. Here's how you should do this. The focus of learning is generally on the needs of the group, what's happening in projects in the moment, and the balance of power is tipped towards the supervisor, right? That's the person who sets the agenda, tells you what to do, make sure work gets done. Now, when it comes to mentoring, the focus of learning and the focus of the work should be on the needs of the mentee. And it's a much more collaborative style of help. We talk, the mentor listens, we exchange ideas, you consider my thoughts, but you have much more power. You have the ability to say great advice for these reasons, not so great advice for these reasons. I'm gonna consider and think about it. The balance of power is more equal and fluid, right? It's really more of a focus on you and your needs. Now, all of us need mentoring about a lot of different things. Sometimes we tend to think very narrowly about it. So what I want to do is use a word cloud to really expand our thoughts about what we want and need mentoring about. So Uli is going to go ahead and activate the poll. When this works, I'm going to do a little dance of happiness, because this means this will work in a hybrid environment. So put down here, trying to use one word whenever possible, what things you want and need mentoring about right now. You can either use the Slido number right here on the slide, or shine your phone at the QR code. What are some of the things you currently want and need mentoring about? So what do you want guidance about? Feedback about science. You actually want support. There's maybe not a specific thing, but support in a bunch of areas. Presentations, how to design experiments. Graduate school, said by some of our postbacks or individuals working as technicians for a while, preparing to move on. Job search, right? That could be at any educational level. I'm ready to move on into the workplace and I would really like some help. All kinds of things. Publications, project management, medical school, what career path might be best for me, writing, time management, career advising, all kinds of things. Let's just watch this grow and change for a little bit. It's really fun to see it on a big screen. It's interesting to me that one of there's actually so many different words, nothing jumps out. You know, sometimes we build a word on one or two words are like the dominant words. This to me reflects the fact that each and every one of us needs mentoring in different areas. The one interesting thing are words like support, guidance, etc. We want to feel that somebody is vested in our success. And that's one really key thing of mentoring relationships, is that we think, oh, this person cares about me. So we need mentoring for all kinds of things. Thanks, Uli. Now, as you, I got to remember to use the clicker here. If you looked at that list and we binned it, I think that we would see that people want mentoring in a couple of spheres or areas. About science, there were things about science and science skills. There were things about career, applications, job searches, career decisions, interviewing. So career type skills. And then there were some that were more personal. I want guidance. I need some help with time management. I need support for having better relationships, easier discussions. So there are mentoring needs in a variety of different areas. In addition, a lot of things that were mentioned there involve some coaching as well. I want help with my public speaking skills, right? So we need mentoring. We also need coaching. We need new coaching. We need coaching as we develop new skills and take on new challenges. For some of you who are contemplating supervising an intern this coming summer, right? You might want coaching in how do I set the stage? How do I develop a project? How do I support them through the summer? So coaching can be about skills in the research group, about professional skills, about interpersonal skills. We also hope that we develop over time relationships with people who will advocate on our behalf. Someone who will pick up the phone and call a colleague and say, I have this amazing student in my group. I'd like you to consider asking them to join your committee. I'd like to suggest this person for the position that you're advertising. So we want coaches, advocates, and mentors. And that's a really key thing. I decided the Wordle is a cool way of doing it, but that I also wanted to give you some thoughts in broader ways as well. So I put together a list based on doing this workshop and talking with people about mentoring many times. I put together a list. It actually includes many of the things you talked about, but it has some other things as well. And the bottom line is we all need mentors at all stages of our career. We need mentors even when we think, oh, we've landed in a good place, right? Everything's great. We need mentors to help us to the next step. We need mentors when things aren't going well, people to support us and help us sort it out. And so the list of what we need mentors to help us with goes on even longer than this. Now, in research environments, when we say mentor, we often mean the supervisor. So in many research environments, your PI, the faculty member, the boss, also serves as your mentor, as a coach, and as an advocate, we hope. Eventually, in the long term, we hope she or he reaches out on your behalf when appropriate to recommend you for journal clubs, for activities in the institute, at your school, etc., even beyond. But we have this assumption that supervisor and mentor are the same, right? The supervisor is the mentor. Now, there are some benefits of this approach, right? Saves time. One person gets to know you better. They can sort of move from one role to another easily. When they're writing a letter of recommendation, they know a whole lot of examples to give. There are some potential benefits, but there are also some risks. And in fact, there are pretty important risks to discuss. Remember, throughout this course, we've talked about how self-awareness is a key to making change, right? The first step in changing an unhelpful behavior or an unhelpful thought or an unhelpful response to uncomfortable emotions is to be aware of them, right? To notice. I think the same applies here, but in a slightly different way. If we talk about the risks, if we raise awareness of the risks to this model, it allows us to balance those risks. It allows us to do things that minimize the risk. So we're going to talk a little bit about the risks. The first risk is, who is always safe talking to their boss? Right? There are things we don't want to talk to our boss about. There are things we might want to talk about our boss with others, right? I'm struggling to be assertive with my PI. Can you help? We're not always wanting to talk with them about everything going on. And sometimes it feels really unsafe. Mentoring relationships are built on this sense of mutual caring and support. Another risk is that sometimes your needs and your PI's needs are not fully aligned. So I ran a lab for a long time, and I remember times when I was really rushed to get papers published. I had a grant due, and it would be a lot better if it said submitted or under review or in press. But the student needed to learn how to write a paper, and that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of coaching. It takes a lot of time, a lot of drafts, a lot of back and forth. My needs to publish the paper fast. Your needs, the student's needs in that case, to learn how to write a paper, needing more time. So sometimes the needs of the PI and the student are not perfectly aligned. In addition, mentoring takes a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of time to tell you what to do at work, but to explain it, to go back and forth, to help you learn from it, that takes time. Also, talking about career development, talking about career decision-making, talking about developing interview skills, that takes a lot of time. And people are super busy. So if your boss is really busy and they have 30 minutes available for you, you're going to likely talk about work a whole lot of that time. And then when there's a few minutes left, what can I do for you about your career development? So time constraints get in the way. Something that is important to appreciate as we go down this list is another risk. And that is that your PI may lack expertise in an area relevant to you, or you may think they lack expertise. But for a moment, let's talk about the cases where they really do. So, I have a lot of expertise in job search skills. I know a lot about various job searches. I've learned it over time. But I know a lot less about somebody who wants to head in a direction of technology transfer. I've never applied to medical school. So while I can know something about it, I might lack expertise that's really relevant to you. Even in science, I had computational biologists in my lab. Well, I'm a cell biologist, so I know a lot about cell biology and careers that rely on bench sciences, on bench work in the life sciences, but a lot less about computer science and computational biology. So sometimes someone can't provide good mentorship because they're not an expert. And I think that that is really, really important to keep in mind as our fifth risk. Now, the sixth risk sort of goes along with that, and that is that sometimes for some PIs, they don't place a high value on some of their mentoring roles. So they might be very happy to mentor you on science, but less excited to mentor you in career development. And even if they're excited to, sometimes they don't know enough. So they might think they know enough, they might know enough to get started, but ultimately you might need more. So there is a lot of risk for each and every trainee who says, my only mentor is my research supervisor. We have to appreciate that in some ways the PI can be a good mentor, and in other ways they potentially cannot. And the truth is that we really hope each and every one of you finds quality mentorship from your PI. But it's important to acknowledge that you need more beyond that, and that it's very important part of your success and resilience in science is developing a broader team of mentors. And that brings me to the strategies that mitigate all of those risks that I just listed. And the first one is to choose your PI wisely and not based only on science. So some of those bullets in that list of risks, some PIs are super thoughtful about. They realize they need to be a good mentor. They do their best to be a mentor in many different areas. They do their best to find time, right? And to make it a priority. But some people don't do their best. When you choose your PI only based on the research being done, or the technique you will learn, or the paper you hope to publish, when that is the only basis of your choice, you put yourself at risk of finding a mentor who isn't that concerned about you. They love their role as supervisor. They will direct your science, but when it comes to the mentorship and coaching you need, they'll say, not my problem. Go find that somewhere else. Or they'll just ignore it. They won't even help you find mentorship other places. So when you choose your PI only based on science, you put yourself at risk. There is a really helpful set of resources that I'll get to later about choosing a research mentor, but I wanted to just go over very quickly this little schematic that I think is helpful. We need to know ourselves and how we learn and what we're looking for and what's important to us at training in this moment. And we have to know our options. Who can I work with? How do I find the right people? We want to spend time talking, interviewing. If we have the option of rotating, if it's graduate school and they say you can try 3 labs, we want to be patient and try that because, right, that's the best way to see what a climate is like. And we want to do all of our research, talking to people who've been in the lab before, asking them very specific questions about the environment. We do all of this. It's like a big data collection mode. We consider our options, and then we choose a research group. This could be about a job as well, but today we're talking about finding a research mentor. Really, we're picking a boss, but in this process, we are looking for people who put a high amount of emphasis on their ability to be a mentor and their willingness to be a mentor. There is a video that will walk you through that process on this Mentoring Matters webpage on the OITE training site. And I have a video that I made a year ago, making a successful transition to graduate school, where I talk a lot about finding quality mentors. If you want your PI, your supervisor, to also be a mentor, you have to do a lot of effort in the interview process. You have to ask questions about mentoring, questions about how issues in the group are dealt with, questions about how you will meet regularly, how often, what will you talk about, how will you get the coaching that you need. So it's a very much more active process than saying the science looks good, they publish good papers, sounds good, let me say yes. And so I really encourage you, those of you who are at a stage where you will be choosing soon, whether that's a graduate school mentor, whether that is a postdoc mentor, those of you choosing soon should take a look at these resources. Those of you already in a relationship, we're going to spend much of the rest of the time talking about having the best experiences possible. That leads me to the second strategy, and that is to cultivate relationships with multiple mentors who are outside of your research group. We all need a mentoring team. It isn't one person, it is a team of people. No one person can meet all of our needs. No one person can be available all of the time. Over time, our mentoring needs will change. They might be very science related, and then some career exploration related, and then something is happening in our life and we're trying to sort out our priorities and we want a mentor to talk with. Our needs change. And when we have a whole team of mentors, we're more likely to find someone who can support us. In addition, I think it's really important to stress that scientific mentors know a lot about science, but they often know less about science careers in different areas. You know, some of them, yes, they applied to graduate school or professional school, but it was many, many years ago, or it was in another system. Sometimes we are not the best career mentors. Sometimes we really owe you referring you to other mentors, and you want to have as many mentors as you can. Finally, one last reason you should consider having a whole team of mentors, and that is that when you get multiple perspectives, it can drive creative solutions. Each of us sees a problem from our own unique lenses, right? And our own unique perspectives. So when you get advice from multiple people, you often increase your chances of having a good outcome. Now, finding outside mentors can be a huge challenge. If this was easy, I think that many people would have a whole mentoring team. And the reason a lot of people don't is that it can be tough. So a few things about finding outside mentors. I think there are 4 questions, 1 to ask in advance and 3 to ask after a first meeting. And the first one in advance is what do I need guidance about? Who is it who has the expertise that I need or access to expertise, right? Maybe they're really good to talk generally about careers, but if I want to talk about industry careers, maybe they'll just have to introduce me to people they know in industry. Are they generous with introducing, right? Do I think they have the expertise I need or access to the expertise? So it's really important to define what you're looking for when you think about looking for mentors. Now, after you meet with somebody, you want to ask yourself, so was it generally comfortable? Did we connect? Did I feel that they listened to me? Did I feel like they asked me questions that were challenging, but also kind? Did I get the right balance of positive input and some pushing and some general questions? Quality mentorship relationships involve mutual support, right? It involves really giving you the support that you need, but it also involves occasionally pushing you out of your comfort zone. Today, I talked to somebody who said, the last time we talked, you kicked me in the butt. And I went, oh, I hope I didn't kick too hard, right? And we laughed a little bit, and it was a great piece of feedback for me about how to kick this particular person a little bit out of their comfort zone. So do you have somebody who does that for you well? They support you when you need support. They challenge you when you need challenge. And then one last thing, generally, do they find time? Now, no one person is available all of the time, right? And sometimes you're going to get, I'd love to talk, but I can't talk with you this week. But in general, are they available? When you say, I really need to talk, do they say, I can work that out? That's the first set of questions to ask. Some of them are before, some of them are as you're meeting. Now, as we think about broadening our mentor network, we want to think about shared life experiences and shared identities. It's helpful to talk to people who have some comfort and familiarity with experiences we might be having. So shared life experiences and shared identities can be very helpful. But the data show that they're not a prerequisite for successful mentor-mentee relationships. The prerequisite for successful mentor-mentee relationships are respect for difference, a willingness to listen and assume that the mentor doesn't always know the answer or fully understand the experience. But there are times when it's really nice to talk to somebody who you feel has some overlapping life experiences, overlapping identities. So it is a really, really important thing to think about, but not to be limited by. I'm going to give you a tool for finding diverse mentors beyond the NIH for those of you here. As we are looking for outside mentors, developing your networking and communication skills is one of the very first steps. It's all really at the start about having a conversation with people. And one of the best ways to get practice, and one of the things that I talk with trainees a lot about, is using institutional resources to get you started. And by that, I mean, is there an office at your school or on your campus that's there to provide mentorship? So an example here at NIH is the OITE. We have career mentors. We have pre-graduate advisors who serve as mentors. We have people who have been postdocs and can talk with you about those experiences, right? So that's an example of an institutional resource. Universities have graduate school offices, career offices, postdoc offices. NIH has the OITE and training offices in the various institutes. It can be a very powerful way to jumpstart the process. Another way of using institutional resources is you get an invitation to have a conversation with the seminar speaker after their talk. They are essentially using the seminar as a way to bring in and expose you to people from different environments, backgrounds, experiences, etc., you say yes and show up. Not for the free food, although it's nice if there happens to be a little bit of free food. You show up because it's a chance to talk with someone about their career, their life, how they got where they are. It's a chance for you to get some mentoring in the moment. Those types of interactions can lead to longer mentoring interactions in the future. So networking is a part of this. And I want to really make sure we talk about networking from a pretty positive way. A lot of times people have a view of networking that isn't so positive. Sometimes people say it's using people. I'm going to talk with them just to use them. Really, it's mutually sharing. It's not using. Sometimes people say, I'm a bother. People wouldn't want to be talking with me about their career or giving me advice about my science. But the honest truth is most of us got where we are because people mentored us and we like to pay it forward. So networking is an essential tool for scientists, and we have to put it into perspective and sort of put aside the negative views and talk about what it really is. Networking really is the development and cultivation of professional relationships. It is talking to others about yourself and your science, listening to them talk about themselves and their science. And as we begin to interact with people on our campus and beyond, we have a chance of developing mentoring relationships. So I put out there already a few places to meet potential mentors. Let's put some other ones out there. So let's give some ideas to each other about that. So Uli, go ahead and activate the Slido. Where are some places to meet potential mentors? And a few people are starting to type. Finally, after doing this for a long time, I see that it tells me up top. Conferences, seminars, meetings, in class, right? Lots of people saying conferences, pointing out how important that is. I want to make a comment about conferences. A lot of times people go to conferences really excited to talk with students. So they sign up for career roundtables or networking events at the end of the day. Those are amazing places to get some career mentoring. Women in Science meetings, special networking events at presentations. Lots of good ideas here. Sometimes people say to me, networking is fine for the extroverts, the people who love to go and talk with people, where they get a lot of energy from that. And I agree, it can be much easier in some ways for people who tend towards extroversion to network. But the honest truth is that introverts bring some serious power to networking. They tend to listen, they tend to be prepared, they tend to have a really good sense of give and take. Whereas extroverts will just talk and talk and talk, an introvert will listen and come back with some thoughts. So all of you have power in this. Extroverts, because sometimes it's a little bit easier. Introverts, because really you have some skills that lend themselves to deeper conversations. And in either case, whether it's easy or hard, right, it's one of those skills we need to develop. So it's an amazing growth mindset opportunity for all of you, right? Whether it's comfortable or not, can I practice? You don't have to go to every event. You don't have to stay a long time. You could even go in saying, I'm just going to talk to 2 people I don't know. I'm just going to go to one round table, ask one question, and then I'm going to reward myself and leave if I need a break. Or I'm going to leave, reward myself with a personal high five outside of the room, or texting somebody and telling them I'm really glad I did it, and then I'm going to go back in. Lots of places to meet people. Great. So the key thing there is that we put ourselves in those opportunities and we practice and grow those skills. I will mention that career counselors can help a lot with networking. One important kind of networking is called an informational interview, and we do that when we're making career transitions to learn about jobs, and they can help with those very special kind of networking as well. A few details. Let's say you go to a meeting and somebody was at that table that you went to, this career roundtable, and they seemed really helpful to you and you enjoyed their comments, you get their name. It's fine to email later and say, I met you at this meeting and I'd really like to talk with you a little bit more about your career. Generally, the best way to set up meetings with potential mentors or informational interviews, in another word in some ways for career mentoring, is to use email. So you send an email request, you set up the first meeting. Now you need to go prepared. Sometimes this comes off as frustrating to people because they went in unprepared and then it is uncomfortable. But if you go in with a list of questions, if you go in having practiced, here's what I want to tell you about myself, here's why I was hoping to talk with you, then you have raised the chance of it being mostly a comfortable interaction. Also, I want to stress that sometimes an interaction goes well, much of the time, but there was a moment that there was some sustained silence, or you got uncomfortable, or you couldn't answer a question. Remember all or nothing thinking, right? We get lost in, oh, it didn't go well, because we ignored the part that did. So if you find yourself saying that didn't go well at all, pause for a moment, take a deep breath and say, well, actually, what did go well? First of all, I set it up. I showed up. I gave a good introduction to myself. Okay, here's what didn't go well. I got a little flustered at this, or I forgot to ask a question or two, right? So just remember that if you go prepared, you have a chance of it going better. And even if it's a learning opportunity with a mix of comfortable moments and uncomfortable moments, that's the learning, right? So growth mindset. You should expect about 30 minutes the first time you ask to talk with somebody. You might be flexible. Don't have something scheduled immediately afterward. People love to talk about themselves. So you'd be surprised. You're like, oh, they're way too busy for me. And then they get into talking and they enjoy it and they realize that it might be helpful. So sometimes it goes longer. It is always respectful to follow up with a thank you. It does not need to be a card. A simple, short email. Thank you so much for talking with me. Now, you might follow up and say, you recommended that I talk with so-and-so, and I'm going to take care of that. Or you recommended that I take a coding course through Coursera. I'm going to look into those. So you can add something that makes it clear that you were listening. You also, if it feels helpful, can ask to meet again. Sometimes one time talking is enough. Sometimes we want to go back. So you could end with, I hope we can talk again soon. Or you could even be more direct. I would really appreciate if we could meet in a few weeks. Can you let me know when you might be available? Or if there's someone who has someone keep their calendar like me, a lot of people say, should I check with Barbara to see when you have time next? And I'm like, woo, you're going to do the work for me. Thank you. Remember that some mentoring relationships last a long time. Sometimes in graduate school, you meet someone in a course, they provide some mentorship, and then you think, wow, I want you on my committee. That could be a really long-term mentoring relationship. So some relationships in mentoring last a very long time. But short-term mentoring also makes a very big difference. Sometimes we only need to talk to somebody once or twice, and we got the mentoring that we needed in the moment. Virtual mentoring is clearly effective, so there's no geography constraints. It is nice to see people in person. So many people have come lately to my office, many of them commenting that I am shorter than they imagined. Right? And it's really nice to see each other in person. But the honest truth is that we are all used to connecting via Zoom and WebEx, etc. So geography is not a constraint. That's a great thing, because if you want some mentoring about graduate schools on the other side of the country, or jobs in another country, right? Or you're an international trainee who hopes to relocate back home again or to another country, right? Luckily, geography doesn't add a constraint. We all need mentors throughout our careers, not just during our training. We get mentoring from peers a lot more as we progress in our career, but we still get mentoring from people more senior than us. And very few of us get mentoring from our boss. It is an odd model for science that many of us realize over time doesn't work for us. The way science is structured right now, we hope your PI becomes a mentor, but we really want you to have other mentors. You know, you can reach out to someone without having a prior interaction with the person, and that list of sources, somebody said YouTube videos, someone said LinkedIn, that's absolutely fine. That could be a cold email where you just say, I found your information online, or I watched your YouTube video, I'd really like to talk. Sometimes you can get referrals from someone you know. They say you should talk to so-and-so, and it's okay for you to say, would you mind if I mention your name in the email? And sometimes they'll actually say, oh, you know what? I'll just send them an email and ask them to talk with you. So that's strategy number 2. Strategy number 3 for dealing with those risks of your PI also being your mentor are learning how to talk with your PI about what you need. Going back to unit 3, where we talked about assertiveness, right? You need to learn how to advocate for yourself. We talked at the start here about having other people advocate for you, and that's a really important thing. But a really equally important thing is advocating for yourself. And at times you'll need to go to your PI and say, my needs right now are a little different than yours, and here's what I need, and can you help me get it? Or here's something in the relationship that I'd like to improve. So remember your assertiveness skills. And I know it's a hierarchical environment where you feel that you have no rights, but you do. All of us have the right to go to work and feel respected. We have the right to safety and boundaries. We have the right to training. We have the right to help in learning new things. Remember that communication style differences, cognitive distortions, and your stress response might come into play. That's why we end with this one. We teach all those other skills in this course because they all come into play in going to talk with your PI. You want to be able to articulate your perspective, consider your PI's perspective. You want to be sure that you make a clear ask. You want to think through any issues that might impact the discussion. You want to practice using those institutional mentors that we've talked about. This is a time to go, if you're a graduate student, to someone in the graduate office, if you're a postdoc in the postdoc office, if you're a post-bac in the office that's there to support you. Here at NIH, that would be OITE. If you're a post-bac in the prep program at a university, it would be the program director. As we're thinking of advocating for ourselves, sometimes we need a lot of support, sometimes just a little support and perspective. It depends on the situation. In summary, all of us need multiple mentors. We cannot rely exclusively on the PI of our research group. We need mentors who really know the science, mentors who know the field, mentors who know about career paths that interest us. We need mentors who know how things work at our institution. We need mentors who just connect with us personally, who inspire us, who are role models for us, where we look and say, you know, I would really like their advice because they are a really moral, ethical person. So it's a whole constellation of things that we need. It is our right to have multiple mentors. It is really also our responsibility to work towards expanding our mentoring network. Well, I want you to just pause for a moment here. We're going to transition away from this part to the other part of the talk. I just want you to think, how many mentors do you actually have? Whether they're people you've lost contact with or not, hold on to for a moment and just add them to the list right now. So we're going to do a poll. How many mentors do you have now, today, in this time? I'll just let this vote go for a little bit. So my hope would be over time that this webinar will help all of you looking at this who say none or one to work towards 2 to 4. 5 to 9 can be a lot of people, or 10 or more can be a lot of people to keep in contact with. But if you've been in a field for a long time, it could be that you have that many mentors. But this is not like a judgment. This is not a competition to get to the highest number. I think to start with, to have a feeling that there are several different people who have your back, several different people who can give you advice is really important. So I don't want this to be one of those comparisons and judgments. I want this to be an appreciation for where we're at and where we might like to go. Thank you, Uli. So what I want you to do is work on this journal prompt before we get together next week in the discussion. What do I need mentoring about? Beyond my PI, who are my mentors? What are important sources of mentorship I haven't explored yet? And always, I think, to improve the culture of science, whenever we talk about things, we need to flip it and say, okay, so if you are now suddenly the supervisor, so let's flip this. If you supervise others in your group, what will you do to help your students develop relationships with multiple mentors, right? What will you do to make sure everyone has a networking team, mentoring team? So that's a journal prompt for later, and we'll be discussing it in the small groups. It'll be a great chance to talk about expanding mentoring networks. And then I just want everyone to set their intentions. This is an interesting, every one of these workshops for me is a little bit different. This one is interesting to me in that it can be one where people leave and make a small change very fast. A lot of the other ones, it takes a lot of practice and self-awareness and journaling and work, but this is one where if you reach out to a single person and start developing these skills, where you've made a big difference. So we're going to set our intention. One thing you're going to do now to expand your network of mentors. One thing, just make a commitment. Maybe you're going to reconnect with a mentor you haven't connected with. Maybe you're going to visit the program director. What's one thing that you're going to do? Maybe you're going to sign up for a seminar and stay and talk to the seminar speaker. Reach out to others on campus, reconnect with an undergrad PI, send life update emails to an old mentor, a really key thing. Reach out to a conference connection, lots of reaching out. Ask a question at a seminar, update past mentors, meet with my postdoc office staff. Reconnect with PIs I'm assuming rotated with or worked with later. Connect with some folks on LinkedIn. Electronic virtual networking like that can be very helpful, but it can't be the only thing. But it's a really good start as well. Connecting with alumni, connecting with someone in the field I'm moving into. So each of you remember your commitment. Maybe what we'll do is pull these out, and when we send the follow-up with the workbook and the slides, we'll include some of this too. Reflect on what I need and seek an informational interview. I think that's a great way to end here. So lots of really good commitments, really good commitments. So let's all make a commitment to come next week. That's a great way to expand your network and to talk about mentoring and come and update on what you actually did. Thank you, Uli. All right. There are some resources for all of this that I just want to pause in this transition and talk about. And one is the previous lectures from the Resilient Scientist series. I think it can be very, very intimidating to begin expanding our network. It can be intimidating to talk to our PI about the mentoring that we need. And you might need to review the cognitive distortion lecture. You might need to review the assertiveness lecture. So I just wanted to remind you. Also, the National Research Mentoring Network, funded by the NIH and functioning all across the country, largely in the virtual space, but they also attend many national meetings. They provide many opportunities for you to connect with mentors. Very diverse community of mentors, talking a lot about cross-cultural mentoring, about respect in mentoring relationships. And it's a resource that you should all know about. So that's one part of a really important talk. The second part is about your relationship with your PI. One thing I'll say at the outset is having a broader set of mentors is one way to improve your relationship with your PI, because then you don't rely on them for some things they can't provide and your frustration goes down. But I want to talk about a whole different way of enhancing relationships with your PI. I want to talk a little bit about something called managing up. Managing up is when you know your manager's style and you adjust your own so that you can work effectively together. To me, in addition to adjusting your own, is also accepting theirs and sometimes just preparing to work with someone whose style is a little different than yours. Sort of tolerating the style difference, maybe even eventually seeing a benefit to the style difference. So we're going to talk about managing up, and we're going to start with some general rules. No two of us have the same work and communication style. We are all different. We are a product of our genetics, our epigenetics, nature and nurture, every environment we have been in, and none of us are the same. Tensions can happen when two people have really different styles, but they can also happen when people have very similar styles. And we had talked about that a lot when we talked about communication styles and feedback in Unit 4. The thing is that everything is worse when you, your boss, or the group are under stress. Communication differences seem much more frustrating and irritating and difficult when everyone is under stress, and we are all under stress. Science in healthcare careers are inherently stressful. So it's important to understand styles and to find a language for talking about them. That way we can work through what is just a style difference that I can live with and what is something that's really getting in my way. And like in everything else we've talked about, awareness is the first step. So earlier we learned about some communication styles, and we talked about drivers and expressives, amiables and analytical communicators. And I hope that any of you not familiar with that material will go back to lecture 4 and go through it carefully. There's also a lot of this in the workbook on Unit 4, and I believe that that workbook should be out any day now. Now, remember that when we talk about these styles, we are looking at 2 dimensions. Someone's focus on task and someone's focus on relationship. And here, relationship is on the y-axis and task is on the x-axis. We're going to use another style grid to help you think about your PI's way of being at work. And it's going to have task and relationship as well, or focus on others and focus on self. So focus on others is relationship and focus on self is task. I'm sorry. Yes, focus on self is task. Now, unfortunately, we flip the X and Y axis. This comes from what's called the Thomas Kilmann conflict grid. Lots of trainees come and talk about conflict with their PIs. They sometimes come to say they won't help resolve conflict. They avoid everything. They sometimes come and say, they always tell me what to do. Sometimes they come and say, they always tell me, do whatever you want to do. All of us have a typical go-to conflict style. Just like we have a typical go-to communication style, 1 or 2 that we tend to use a lot, we tend to have 1 or 2 conflict styles that we use a lot. So if our PI tends to use an avoiding style and we really need to address an issue with them, that's going to be hard because their preference is to not get involved. On the other hand, competing, where somebody just tells exactly what we need to do. They're going to get their way no matter what in a disagreement or negotiation. We might be completely struggling with that style. It's not a style that's easy for us to deal with. It feels very power driven, right? And so understanding that people have styles is really helpful. So if our PI has a competing style that comes with a driver communication style, right, it feels like an argument right at the start. Managing up and adjusting styles to get the most you can out of your relationship means understanding their style and your style and considering how best to work with that. And that isn't always easy, and hopefully I'm going to give you some tools for that. Beyond communication and conflict style, there are a lot of other differences that drive difficulty. And one is whether we are problem focused or success focused. So you do a big project, you put together a presentation, you would really like to get some positive feedback. And a success focused boss might point out all the positive things, but a lot of scientists are problem focused. So instead of saying, here's everything that went well, they focus on the thing that didn't. Remember that all or nothing thinking? They have picked out what didn't go well. Now, maybe you yourself are worried about that. So when they start saying this needs to be better, suddenly you don't feel supported. So that's a style difference. Our approach to deadlines and how we view time. Some people say, give it to me Monday by noon, and they literally mean Monday by noon. And some people mean any Monday by noon, or later in the day is okay, the next day is okay. If you come at things where time is plentiful and it's okay to be late, and they come at work from the perspective that time is very precious and you can't be late, that's a style difference that leads to problems. How much we value work, friendships, and relationships. You would feel so much better if they would ask you about their weekend, about your weekend, but they don't value that at all. They don't care about the weekend. They're not thinking about the weekend. They're thinking about work. So you walk away and say, oh, they don't care about me. See, I wanted to talk with them a little bit and they didn't want to, and they don't care about me. Whether we're open to new ideas or cautious about exploring new ideas. I think that something in my office that irritates many people who work with me is when they bring new ideas. My first answer is no. I think I like to be convinced. It's just a style. It's almost like just a caricature of a style. It happens so often. You come with a new idea and you are all excited and your boss says, no, that's not going to work. And you just walk away and say, well, forget it. But if it's just their style to always say, no, that's not going to work, managing up means you say, can I bring you some more information? Can we talk about it again? Can you reconsider? This is really a good idea, important to me. That's what managing up is. If we have a boss, I'll use one of these other style differences. If we have a boss who's very time driven and we're not, we set our deadline early, so we make their deadline. That's managing up. We know what they do and we try to make it work. Now, the honest truth when it comes to all of these style differences, I won't talk about all of them. The honest truth is we wish that they would also accommodate us, right? I'm willing to adjust to my boss. I'd like my boss to adjust to me. You adjust for your PI, you'd like your PI to adjust a little bit for you. And the honest truth is in a perfect mentor-mentee, boss, supervisor, supervisee relationship, both parties would adjust. Okay, that's one of the things about picking wisely when you pick a PI. You want to pick someone who's aware that they have to adjust. I'll tell you that we're starting the Raising a Resilient Scientist series in a week or so for PIs and research staff, and a lot of people, actually over 1,000 are registered. So a lot of PIs would like to learn some skills to adjust. We're going to talk about these same styles and communication and conflict and cognitive distortions, etc. You want to find a boss who sees your style and tries to adjust. But you also need to see your boss's style and try to adjust. Now, on this list are a lot of things, and at the end, it says lots of other small details about the way we work. Things like, when is the best time to talk to my PI? In my research group, it was sort of well known that Sharon is much more likely to engage in conversation in the morning than late in the day. And it's still true. I am my best self until about 1 o'clock. And then I'm an okay version of myself. And as we get towards the end of the day, some of my irritating habits grow, right? Managing up is saying, when's the best time? Managing up is saying, is email better? Do they like summaries? Do they like information before? Do long emails drive them nuts, or do they read them carefully? So it isn't just some of those big things about the way we prefer to do things. It's sort of mundane things, like, is it better if I show up and talk? Do they want detail in our communication, or a general summary and they will ask for detail later? What's their preferred way of communicating? What's their most approachable? When are they most approachable? When is their best meeting time, right? All of our bosses have hot buttons, things that irritate them. You know, some bosses could care less what time we come in, and some bosses would like an email saying, I'm going to be late. It's just a style. It's not necessarily being micromanaged. It's not necessarily that they don't trust you. It's that that's their style. They like to know. Every person is different. So here's a set of questions to journal about. You also should go back to those other styles that I talked about on the last slide. Think about your PI style. Think about your boss's style. You can do this with anyone, right? Knowing their style and acknowledging that people are who they are, meaning they're not likely to change a whole lot. They might change small amounts. All of us adjust our styles, but it's a small amount. How are you going to thrive with this person? What are you going to do differently, right? If there is a set of things that really irritate them, knowing those things and asking yourself, can I make change not to be quite as poking at them, right? Can I do that, and will it improve things? Now, again, the flip side is, will they do that to support me? So going back for a moment to that one of problem-focused or success-focused, it's easy for a boss to appreciate that some positive input would be helpful, right? So you have the right to expect your PI to be interested in knowing what you need as well. But the honest truth is, in hierarchy, the more we also try to adjust, the better off we often do. I always worry about giving this workshop because there is a too far. People asking you to totally ignore your needs while you work in their research group is not okay. So I want you to hear all of this with the caveat that you have to feel safe, you have to feel supported, you have to feel that they are trying as well. There's a really nice work styles assessment sheet that comes from the work of Mr. Ed Batista. We actually talk about this when we talk with PIs. I think it's useful for all of you to look at as well. And putting it all together, you want to write about your PI often is, does, uses these styles. This is their view of conflict. They can be so repetitive that it feels really difficult. Here's what they like. Now you do it about you too. I am, I do, I use, right? And then what you want to do is pause and step back and say, so where does it go well? And then you want to say, okay, so are there out spots? Usually there are. Usually people who come to this webinar come for a few reasons. One is they want to be good mentors. So they want to hear about mentoring, and that's always really satisfying. Some come because they see they have a pretty good relationship, but they'd like to improve it. So there are out spots. Okay, some come because they're really struggling, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So that's how you use this information. You have to be you, and they will be them. and your styles will not match perfectly, and you will need to adjust. But hopefully they also are aware that they need to adjust, and it's a team effort to get the most out of the relationship. Good mentoring involves adjusting to each other. You adjust to their style, but they are also adjusting to your style. Now, some people hit this part of the webinar and they say, my situation is so bad that I have no idea what to do, and I'm going to address that a little bit. Some people come to this part and say, there are some things really bothering me. Overall, I'm doing okay, but there are some things bothering me. So I want to address that first, and then I want to talk about what to do when we're really struggling. So you have two really big options, and one is to talk with your PI or supervisor about the issue, right? That goes back to the assertiveness. That goes back to the skills needed to deal with the role tension between mentor and supervisor, right? You can go to your PI and you can say, the way you give feedback is really stressing me out. You give me feedback, I get stressed. When I'm stressed, I don't work well. Then I make mistakes. Then you give me hard feedback, and it's a really negative loop. So I hope some of you could imagine actually having discussions like that, because one of the best ways to resolve issues is to talk about it. I actually like to say two things about that. One, well, really three, I'm going to say. One is that just appreciate, like you, they have a style. So it's not easy to change styles. So really, this is about everybody making smaller changes that lead to some positive change in the long term. The second thing is to have discussions like this in the midst of a super stressful time. In the middle of really hard times is hard. So it's good to sometimes explore issues when there's lower stress. We like to say, strike while the iron is cold, right? Don't go in the moment when you're really upset about it. You can't wait too long, because then you put it off, but you want to make sure that you are emotionally regulated before you talk with them. And then one other thing, it's a team. In a research group, there are a whole lot of individuals, the me's, but there's also a we. We have shared goals. We want to solve problems. We hope to present this work. So there really is both a we and a me. And you often start by pointing out those shared goals, and that helps to have discussions about working together better. Now, another option is you decide it's just not a deal breaker and you let it go. You acknowledge that they tend to be sort of problem focused or a bit of a driver, or at times they micromanage you. But you say, overall, my needs are being met. I'm growing and learning, and this is a pretty good place. So then one thing to do is to work on that acceptance. You know, you sort of know the style, expect the style, right? They tend to be this way. Yeah, I know that's going to happen. A lot of times when I talk to trainees who work with driver communicators, really intense, energetic, forceful communicators, I say we go into the meeting knowing they're likely to be that way. You have somebody who really doesn't tend to give feedback at all, know that you're going to need to ask. Don't resent it, go and ask. So know the style, expect the style. But then if you don't do the last part, it gets really hard. And that is separate the style from the person and the outcome. You can't resent someone for many, many years and work with them. So you have to know the style, expect the style, and let go of the irritation. That means finding a healthy outlet for dealing with the frustration of the style. That could be complaining to a friend, that could be venting in a journal. For me, that's tennis, it's biking, it's all kinds of exercise, it can be dance, it can be all kinds of things. And sometimes when the style that's an issue is that they avoid some things, or they're not a mentor in one area or another, find others to fill in the gaps. All right, so there's a lot of ways that you could come to just accept it. It's not a deal breaker, I'm gonna let it go. But for some of you, you are sitting here saying, the environment really doesn't work. The mentor really doesn't work. In fact, it is silly to use the word mentor. They are really either an absent mentor, an unkind one, a tormentor, right? Somebody whose lab environment is really difficult. Sometimes we can't try to change small things. Sometimes we can't accept. We have to really look and say, I am in a difficult place. The mental health of trainees and in the sciences is pretty poor. There's high rates of anxiety and depression. There are lots of reasons for that. We'll talk about that a lot as we enter the mental health series, which starts on Monday. You all should have an invitation to that. The honest truth is, being in a difficult work environment where you do not feel safe, where you are not seen and valued and heard for who you are, is really, really hard on your health and well-being. So for some, this workshop really leads to a discussion that the environment is really difficult. What do I do? Now, I already talked about some of these, accepting how it is and doing nothing about it or trying to change it. But I want to add on to that some other discussions. So we're going to start and go through all of these, even though we've touched on a little bit of it already. It starts with a framework for decision making. And I think we need to ask ourselves, is this a big problem or a little problem? A capital P 80-point font bold problem, or an 8-font little case P problem? I think sometimes we let little problems grow into really big ones because we're isolated, because we're not getting support, because we're not sort of talking through everything. But sometimes we also ignore really big problems. People minimize their problems because of power differences, because they think it's their fault for a lot of reasons. So the first thing, if you're sitting here thinking, what about my environment, is to really start getting some help to sort out what is happening, right? Sometimes we reframe a problem into an opportunity. This person's communication style is hard for me, but I'm learning assertiveness. It's not so hard and I have had some success, so I'm turning this problem into an opportunity. But sometimes we identify a problem and we acknowledge how much of an issue it is for us, and we have to do something about it. That involves a lot of discussion of risks and rewards, right? And we talked a lot about the risk and reward scaffolds in the third part, right? The Resilient Scientist series, part 3. So sometimes we just accept how it is and do nothing. When we're generally happy, when many of our needs are being met, we can do this when we're very close to the end of something or the end of our time in that group. We don't wish to derail the progress. Sometimes we do this when it's a short-lived experience, a 10-week summer internship, a rotation for graduate school that's going to be over soon. Sometimes we just accept how it is and we do nothing. That means a bit of letting go, right? It means finding a way in the moment to decrease our frustration. It means finding ways to fill areas where we're lacking support or information. Our PI doesn't talk to us about careers. We go to the career office. We set up a whole set of career mentors outside. It also involves the one thing that we will come back to in all 4 of these, and that is taking care of your well-being, which we talked about in Unit 1. So sometimes we just accept how it is. Now, sometimes we decide to change the situation, and we've already covered this a little bit. This is something we should do if we've never had a discussion, right? If we've just accepted what is and never gone and said, hey, can I just share what's bothering me? Sometimes we decide we should try that. Not always, it doesn't always feel safe, but often it does. Sometimes things are generally positive, but there's a really big issue. You really love the science, you just don't feel you can work in that environment, and you really, unless it changes, and you really hope to find a way to stay. So you decide, I have to try to change it. This is all about assertiveness. You're going to need to talk with your PI. You're going to also need to talk with other relevant parties. Institutional support systems are really important here. This is really a time of getting advice about advocating for yourself. And again, one cannot do this unless they're taking care of their well-being, unless they're getting advice from others. Now, sometimes we go through this exercise and we reach a point where we say, every day when I have to come in, I clench my jaw, my stomach hurts. I really can't do this. I realize that this situation is beating the love of science out of me. It is making me lose all of my self-confidence. It's making me feel really, really undervalued. I don't know if I can stay. Sometimes this comes at a point when people feel that staying is impacting their health. And I really wished it didn't come to that, which is why we end with this material. Sometimes we decide to leave because you're just starting in a group and you have other options. One of the problems in science is that often trainees feel like they don't have other options, and institutional support systems have to help you expand your options and see that you have options. But rotating graduate students, right, they have options, right? They're rotating. If you have your own funding, if there's an institutional support system that will help you navigate this, and I hope there is at every place here at NIH, the OITE will help trainees with this a lot. Usually leaving the situation you don't want to do before you've tried to improve it. That's why all these other skills are so important. That's not always the case. Sometimes people are really in an unsafe place and we have to take action even without trying to improve the situation. You want to carefully think through options and approaches as you move forward. And it's really critical, if this is where you're at, that you engage important institutional resources on campus. One does not want to leave a situation without getting advice, and this is at every training level. I want to acknowledge that for some people, this is even harder. In international trainees have a lot of additional stresses in considering these options, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. Leaving a situation is an incredibly difficult thing. This is a time where you really need to be taking care of your well-being and practicing all of the well-being strategies we talked about, reaching out to counselors, making sure that you are taking care of your body and your heart and your mind and your spirit. Another part of this is working over time to let go of the situation and deal with the hurt, not let go as if it's okay, it was, it was not so bad, but let go of, meaning that you process it, you talk about it, you understand that you were not at fault, or else you can't move on successfully. You carry the issues from one group to the next. Sometimes we really do decide that we need to consider leaving the situation. Now, sometimes students point out that what they'd like to do is really try to change their response, that there are some issues that really bother them, but they are at a critical juncture. They really need to finish, right? If you stay a long time and you're towards the end of graduate school, thinking about leaving is a serious thing, right? And they're like, I need to find a way to hold on. And there is this option of changing ourself and our response to the situation, right? That requires a whole lot of taking care of ourselves. It means finding support on and off campus. It means looking hard at the gaps of what we're not getting and making sure that we get it. If you're getting no career mentoring and you stay and, nobody is filling in that gap, you put yourself at a lot of risk. So it really means a hard discussion about what is it that I'm lacking in this environment and how will I take care of myself? How is it that I can fill in gaps on campus and off campus? I think sometimes trainees go right here They say, it's all me, it must be me, right? We tell ourselves stories and the environment is feeding those stories, right? It's probably me, nobody else would struggle like this. I will just toughen it out. I don't want you to read this slide as that message. I want you to read this slide as sometimes we really are in a place where holding on is worthwhile. And what we want to do is find a way to do that. But we have to be open to the possibility that leaving a situation is wise. One of the reasons why I wish people heard this material early in their careers is it gets harder and harder to leave as we stay. Remember sunk cost fallacy, right? Sunk cost fallacy means, well, I've come this far, it would be crazy to leave. So the earlier you start saying what is working for me in this environment and what is not working for me, the earlier you do that, the better. Obviously, and again, I feel like I need to say this again and again, there is no excuse for environments that are toxic and bullying, and nobody should ask students to withstand those environments. We have, as leaders in science, a responsibility to do something about that on your behalf. We owe you better, and many of us are talking about it. So I don't want to imply in any way that you should decide to stay in an environment that is unsafe, that is demeaning, that is discriminating, that is disrespectful. But sometimes an environment just isn't exactly right, and we want to consider our options. Sometimes an environment really needs to be changed, and reaching out to people is important. How we decide all of that in the middle of an amazing stress response is really hard. Think about it, right? You're struggling in a group, your stress is so high, and remember our window of tolerance. We don't think as clearly when we are stressed. So what you do, and how you decide which option is right, it really depends on so many things. It depends on our general relationship, our satisfaction in the group, the investment, right? I mean, just remember that some relationships are just need a little bit of work to be improved, right? Remember the status of the bridge. Some relationships are really broken, and both parties have to want to improve something. So how you decide is a little bit thinking that through. And I already alluded to sunk cost fallacy. It's important to appreciate that and to start having these discussions at early times. I don't think the data support the idea that talking about changing early means that people change. I think actually having early conversations mean people are more proactive in improving things. But I think we'll need a lot more work on that over time. Nobody can decide which option is right for them without using important institutional resources. Everyone should know those people in advance. Each and every one of you should make sure that you are networking and building relationships with important people on your campus, because to reach out to them when you are stressed is really hard. To reach out to them when you're stressed, when you know them already, is easier. And finally, I think that counseling and therapy and support groups and all of the wellness tools we talked about are really important in all of this. I think that it is really a challenge for trainees to navigate some of these big decisions. None of us are great bosses all of the time, right? Like you, we have styles. Like you, we have distractions. Like you, we have come easies and come hards. And the honest truth is nobody goes into science to manage people. They go into science to solve problems, and because they love the intellectual rigor and challenge of it. And very few of people in my generation of scientists had any training in this regard. So you can all help change that by attending leadership programs and mentoring programs, relationship management programs. We need to make our PIs do more of that, and we are working on that, and many, many people are doing great work in that area. In some ways, we have to be able to shrug it off, forgive and forget the small things. Sometimes we have to drop the rope and just say, fine, I'm going to accommodate what you want, because in the long term, the relationship is more important than winning this particular thing. But if all we're ever doing is giving up, If all we're ever doing is accommodating, if all we're ever doing is saying, okay, I'll put aside what I need, then we are not in an environment where we can grow and learn. All of us need to be in an environment where we feel seen and heard and valued for who we are. There are ups and downs in those relationships, even the best ones. I wanted to end with this piece of art, which I love and which I think about all the time. This is the work of Yves Klein. It's called Jumping into the Void. So my wife and I often go to see art on the weekends. It's one of our wellness strategies. And we went to see a retrospective of his work, and it was a long, hard week. And I was sitting underneath. It was giant. It was huge. It was like 2 stories high. And I looked at that and I said, oh, that's what it's like to be a trainee in science. You feel like you're jumping into a void. The honest truth is, when we have the help of mentors and communities and support from people who care about us, it's not so hard. Turns out, art history, this is a celebration of space flight. If you zoom into his face, it's not a scary face. It's actually this joy about space flight. Do not ask me how this happened. This was in 1960, so this is not Photoshopped. So super cool. So I wanted to leave you with that and with this. These 2 images, which one I took in North Carolina and one outside our house. The first one, right, look at all those green leaves, and then there's this shocking, beautiful red. You know, be you. Shocking and different in some ways. We have all of this pressure to conform in science, but science is much better when all of you are you. So stand up and be yourself and be assertive and advocate for yourself. And the second, this is moments after that butterfly hatched. So we watched that caterpillar become, the word is leaving me right now. But anyway, we watched this go from a caterpillar to a monarch butterfly. And this was about a minute before this butterfly was able to dry its wings and fly off and away. It is an amazing thing to watch emerging scientists become scientists and emerging healthcare workers to become emerging healthcare workers. And it doesn't matter what you do in science, at the bench or away from the bench, in academia, in industry, in science adjacent fields, education, law, business. It makes no difference what you do. It is amazing to watch all of your progress. Mentorship and having mentors helps us on that journey, and it helps us be us, right? It helps us be willing to stand out. And so hopefully these images are a good way to end and give you a little bit of a reminder of sort of the importance for what you're doing and the importance for what you bring to the space. So this is the end of our series. I'm going to take questions now. I also, we will send you the slides and the workbooks. We meet next week for the small group discussion, so please join us. Can the same, so I'm going to take some questions now. Can the same person be a supervisor, mentor, coach, and advocate, or some combination? Yes, people can actually put on one hat, take off another hat, put one on. We can do that. And the more we are intentional about it and the more we talk about it and think about the risks, the more it can happen. But the honest truth is, the best way for you to move through the research space and be successful is to have multiple mentors. My mentor has not been my advocate. I am disappointed. Is there an advocate for trainees? Is that OITE here at NIH? So, you know, sometimes our boss is our advocate, sometimes it's other people. And yes, the career coaches and pre-med and pre-grad advisors can be advocates. In OITE, we advocate for our different trainee groups. Others in your institute, in your lab group, can advocate for you. You know, I think of all of them, advocacy is the hardest, because I think a lot of times people need to be reminded to be an advocate. Also, I think that we have this view that our boss should be advocating for us all the time. Like, oh, I'm looking for a job. They should call everywhere I want to work and find me a job. And that's a little bit unrealistic. So if your If your PI doesn't advocate for you at all, and there's something you really would like advocacy about, if it feels comfortable, you could ask, would you consider nominating me for this? Do you have any thoughts about me doing this? Or ask someone else. I'm too shy to articulate my concerns. What can I do? I think it starts learning how to advocate for ourselves and articulate concerns starts with self-awareness about what parts of it are hard for us, why it's hard for us, what cultural messages we've had that make it hard, what experiences we've had, what is sort of a part of our personality and our temperament and who we are. And then that happens more easily with support and encouragement and guidance and a growth mindset. I think it's very hard for many trainees to be assertive and to advocate for themselves. Growth mindset tells us that if we work on the self-awareness and the confidence, if we get coaching, if we practice in safer situations, that we will grow and learn. And I think the place the way to do that and the place to practice that are where you can find safety. The place to talk about that can be with mentors, it can be with therapists, it can be with peers. It's a long process to learn skills like advocacy and assertiveness. So many people have gotten messages not to advocate and not to be assertive. How can I start mentor relationships when I am socially anxious and nervous to talk to people? Often we talk about come easies and come hards, and it's important to acknowledge that it is much harder. Some of these skills are much harder for some of us than others. So I think it starts first from a place of kindness and self-compassion there in acknowledging, thanks for coming, acknowledging that it is hard for you. And then it involves having a set of strategies to help and starting again in safe places, right? So who is it around you that it feels easiest to practice these skills with? And maybe it doesn't feel at all easy in the work environment or in your circle of peers. And so you start by finding a therapist and practicing there, talking about it there. I think that I talk with all kinds of students with all kinds of communication styles and things happening. I think maybe what you all need to hear is that there are an awful lot of people who can see all of the wonderful things you bring. And that while you might think, oh, this is a terrible conversation because I'm anxious, they might be saying, wow, I admire this person for coming to talk with me. I admire what they are working on, what they are working to learn and to grow. So maybe you could try a little bit of reframing that we will value hearing from you and we will learn from you, and that all of us have our come easies and our come hards in communications. There's all this literature on introverts and extroverts, and oh, isn't it so much better to be extroverted? There's this amazing book, The Power of Introverts. In my house is somebody who has a whole lot more anxiousness than I do. And every once in a while, I am really thankful because we talk about something long enough for me to realize, wow, that was really an important question to ask. And so I've come to appreciate the power of all of that. So maybe we just try to embrace a little bit this idea that it's a journey and that we find the safest places to grow and learn. Do you think it is a good practice that a mentor stands by their mentee even when they make mistakes? Well, first of all, we all make mistakes. So yes, I think that it's critically important for people to stand by each other through mistakes, but it is equally important to discuss those mistakes, debrief about those mistakes, learn from those mistakes. But yeah, I think that it is incredibly important to stand by people when mistakes happen. How people stand by you and how they give feedback versus Support, you may not like their style so much, but look for both the feedback and support. How can we meet one of the speakers from the OITE if we need help with some situation? If you are here at NIH and you want to talk with someone in OITE, you simply need to email oite@nih.gov and someone will get back to you. You can email me directly. Appreciate that I sometimes need a gentle kick in the butt by a second email saying, Dr. Milgram, you said you would meet with me and I haven't heard from you. You can email me directly. You can email the OITE general line. You can go to the career counseling portal and make an appointment with a career mentor. If you're not sure who to talk with, just send us an email and we will help. If you are outside of NIH listening to this, there are likely people in a comparable office at your institution. And the honest truth is, I think it is best to start there. That said, there are times that people come and reach out and ask for some guidance. And, we are there in support of the entire research enterprise. The honest truth, though, is that we know this environment and we don't know your environment. I do want to mention one thing, and that is when it comes to being really in a harassing and bullying environment. So at NIH, we talk about the civil process and coming to OITE with those concerns. I want to share that those of you who are at universities in the US that have NIH funding, that there is an online web form where you can report harassment to the NIH, and NIH extramural, the people on the grant award side, will look into what's happening. We don't want scientists to take money from NIH and bully and harass trainees and other research staff. And if you need information on that, if you just send me an email directly, I will put you in touch, send you those resources and put you in touch with people who can help. But generally, start at your institution. If you need to go beyond your institution, absolutely do that. What is the healthiest way to address research conflicts? The healthiest way to address research conflicts is to find a calm way to talk about them, for everyone to share their views and their opinions, for everyone to try to hear the opinion of others. Conflict, we look at it as a bad thing. The honest truth is conflict can be a really positive thing. It can drive change. It can clear the air. It can lead to better relationships. Learning how to have healthy conflict, a lot of the skills we learn in this course add to that. The ability to pause and listen, the ability to ground, the ability to realize your cognitive distortions. That helps a lot in conflict. A lot of times I'll read a behavior, I'll see a behavior and I interpret it negatively, and I want to just give harsh feedback. And every time I teach this course, I learn a little bit. And then I say, can I share my perception of this? And then the person shares why it happened. And sometimes I go, ah. And even when I don't go, ah, I can often see where the miscommunication came from or where the issue might have come from. So the more we learn to talk to each other with respect, some conflict gets out of hand and we need mediators. There are at many universities, ombuds offices, right? They are expert mediators. Graduate offices and postdoc offices will help with conflicts. I mean, we go at it different ways depending on the context. What is the best way to address toxic and adverse lab conditions? It really depends exactly what the conditions are. It would be very important for you to understand the anti-harassment process in your university, to start with someone that you trust to get some advice. Every university has systems in place. Here at NIH, if you are in a toxic environment, please reach out to OITE and someone will listen and help you navigate next steps. If you are at a university and you want to report to the NIH, reach out to me and I'll help you do that. But again, it really starts by knowing the resources on the ground. How can we turn a one-time informational interview into longer-term mentorship? Is it appropriate to do that? How often could I message and keep in contact? So very, very often a one-time informational interview turns into a longer-term mentoring relationship. You send a thank you, you make it clear how much you enjoyed the conversation, how valuable you perceived it to be, and you ask if it's possible to meet again. You know, nobody's going to meet with you multiple times a week. I think even every other week with somebody whose job is not mentorship might be a lot. Once a month, every other month. I have a lot of people that I've been in mentoring programs with, and eventually I say, every 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Sometimes they only send an email update and we only meet 2 or 3 times a year. It just depends. In career offices, postdoc offices, graduate career offices, offices in your institute, if you're at NIH or OITE, many of us are, our job is to be a mentor to you. And then, you can ask for appointments as needed. My mentor refuses to intervene in bullying by a colleague. This has strained our rapport. I am shaken since I thought bullying was not permitted at the NIH. I am very, very sorry to hear that you feel unsupported and that somebody didn't step in. And if you reach out to me directly, I will provide access to resources and talk about next steps. What to do? What should you do if somebody is micromanaging you? Should we wait and let it go, as it could be their style? The honest truth is that at times micromanaging can be good as we're learning something. Having somebody really looking over our shoulder, talking with us, telling us what to do can be good, but eventually it's not. There's a time when we need to start sort of flying and making independent decisions. And so you shouldn't just assume it's their leadership style and do nothing about it. If you feel safe, it would be good to say, I've really appreciated the strong guidance and oversight. Micromanaging, not a good word. I would use strong guidance and oversight, but I would like to try to be a little bit more independent and solve issues on my own. I wonder if you could support me in doing that. I think a lot of times pointing out how much we've benefited from something and we'd like to see a change is a good way to go. That's not always the case, but in this one, it is, right? I really appreciate all of the oversight and guidance. I feel more confident in the technique. I feel more confident in doing this. Can I have a little bit more independence now, right? That's the way to do it. When looking for a new mentor, what are some strategies to get a sense of their mentoring style with a limited amount of time to determine whether it would be a positive relationship? So you need to ask them some questions. What is your way of interacting with trainees? You need to ask them questions about, how do people in your lab learn how to write papers or fill in the blank, right? If it's a lab where there's a lot of flow cytometry, how do you generally like for people to learn flow cytometry? You can learn something from the PI, but anybody can seem warm and friendly for a short period of time. So you also want to find people in the group. You want to talk to the people in the group now, and you want to ask specific questions. You don't want to say something like, how is it? Because they'll look down and say it's okay. Also, if they say, well, it's pretty hard, I don't know if I would come here. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm going to be fine. And we don't hear those kinds of things. So we want to ask good questions and listen carefully. We can look to talk with people who have left the group. We can talk to other institutional people, right? If we're in grad school, we can ask the director of graduate studies, what are your thoughts on the climate there? But really, it is asking questions of the PI. It is asking questions of people in the group, asking questions of people who were in the group. Also, if you are in a program that allows rotations, embrace that and do it. And pay attention during the rotation. If somebody doesn't interact with you a lot during the rotation, if they are an absent mentor during the rotation, they will be an absent mentor later. People don't suddenly improve. There might be something about timing, but generally people are who they are when you're rotating. So yeah, there could be some caveats to that advice, but not many. So pay attention during the rotation. If you can't rotate, see if you can go to lab meeting a few times. Is it calm, and are people laughing, and generally are people discussing issues? Do they spend time at the start? Is there anything that we need to talk about? You just do your best to learn about the group. I actually think this is one of the biggest challenges, because I think a lot of times we think we're going into a good environment and it turns out not to be such a positive environment. So we need to be a lot more focused on fact finding than getting wowed by the science. There's a song, I can't remember who it's from, but I love it. She blinded me with science. So go ahead and Google it and listen tonight. Probably showing my age in that. You know, I think a lot of times we get blinded by the science or the chance of a publication, and we ignore warning signs. So self-awareness about that. When looking for a new mentor, that I already answered. I just didn't dismiss it. How do you tell your PI that you're feeling uninspired by a project they assigned you and that you would like to try something else? You know, I think that, again, it depends on context, but if you generally feel safe, you know, you would start with the we, right? I really want to do good work in this research group. I want to contribute to the group and learn new skills, right? A little bit of sort of building a connection. And I have some concerns about the current project I'm working on. Here are my thoughts. I wonder if you would consider letting me try something in this area or that area. And again, you wouldn't just walk in and casually have that conversation. You would find an advisor, a mentor, you would practice. You might journal about it a little bit. You might think you want to spend a little bit of time with that whole perspective taking. Well, here's my thoughts about how great this would be. What do I think my PI might think about that, right? So perspective taking, my perspective, their perspective. A little bit of thinking it all through before you go in to have the conversation. All right, so the Q&A box is empty. And somebody put in there that the song I reference is from Weird Science by Oino Boingo. I don't know. Thank you for putting that in. I am going to check. Uli put a feedback form in the chat. Please go ahead and give us some feedback. You know, I have been doing this series now a lot since 2020, and I'm still trying to find my way through what is most helpful, what is needed that we're not providing, trying to understand the benefit of the groups. I'm trying to understand the workbook. Should, you know, some people don't come to the groups. How can they learn? So I need your feedback. So thank you. I wish you all the very, very best. I will be at the American Society for Cell Biology meeting in a month. If you are a cell biologist at the meeting, please come and find me. There'll be a whole well-being program there. It should be easy to find me. Those things will be in the workbook, in the program book. And I hope to be at other meetings as COVID situation improves and I feel a little bit better about traveling while taking good care of my family. And it's Thomas Dolby. She blinded me with science. Thank you, Rachel. So with that, I want to thank all of you for being here and for going through this journey with us. Please come to the groups next week and we will be in touch. Thank you.